Oh, Hi. Okay, so I'm gonna be very honest with you people right now. I hate this series. The concept in theory is actually a pretty killer one, and I've seen other people pull it off with their channels. However, I forgot to factor the vital element which completely ruins this for me. People. No offense, but you guys have the worst idea of what makes a good build. Like, every time I ask for a loadout to use or a community post, no offense, but I see some of the lamest shit ever. Like, yeah, I know the AUG is cool or whatever, but even if I wanted to make a video about it, I can't spend 8 minutes talking about one loadout that orbits around a gun I've already done a video on, or worse yet, haven't, and I'm just gonna blow all my information on to begin with. Frankly, this entire series could sort of just keel over and eat shit, and I wouldn't shed a tear, but I'll be damned if I let this one dude down because he asked so politely, and I'd rather have a nice round 5 entries just like most seasons of Gun Guide. So here we are, covering probably the most requested build that a lot of completely separate individuals converged on in the comments. I'm calling it the World War II GI. I'm Snipes, and in all certainty, for the last time, after a whole year, I do loadouts. Name alone, this build should be pretty obvious. 1 stock and 1 Garand, 1 default, 2 World Wars, Colt M1911 with a quick draw holster just because I'm not exactly grasping for equipment credits here, and an F1 frag grenade, all World War II era equipment. Whether or not you'd want to carry your armor with it, I found isn't particularly relevant, but forget body armor, if you think any battle line infantry had more than 3 clips of rifle ammunition on them at any given time during the war, your knowledge is probably borrowed from something like Call of Duty, so no. And I usually took a pass. I also made an attempt at assembling a 1940s era GI uniform, but honestly I think my heart was in the right place, but the devs don't really add World War II drip, so we're just gonna ignore it. I said a lot about in my guide for the Garand, but it's really worth mentioning how much this weapon really did for the technology in the free world as a whole. People got hissy, I remember when my guide came out, because I said it was good to have against the new era of machine weaponry, MG42s, MP40s, and the STGs eventually, and everyone pointed out it was developed before the utilization of these weapons on the battlefield and was never designed with combat against them in mind, which bothered me a little because that's not what I said. Regardless of intention, Germany fielded an array of small arms that put virtually every piece of equipment a nation like the United States had to shame. Better heat dispersion, stronger construction, and more reliability on top of the bonkers fire rate guns like the MG42 had. And let's not forget the MG34 was around for years before the war even popped off. The reality was the states were far more focused on creating economically effective units, ones which could be mass produced, and while a winning strategy, it didn't really help the guy on the Western Front in a man-to-man fight with inferior weapons. The only real exception to the gutter divide between their technology and Germany on a unit-to-unit basis was the Garand. It was the US's first and frankly the world's first viable self-loading standard infantry rifle. This wasn't some machine gunner role like in World War I where maybe an infantry squad got 2 men on a designated big bulky turret that was water-cooled, or tankers' sidearms to defend themselves which could fit into compact spaces like a Sterling or Sten. This was a true rifleman gun that auto-loaded, cheap enough to give to every man. In direct comparison, Germany's rifle, the Karabiner 98K, was bolt action and firing an inferior caliber. Whatever it wasn't 30-06 Springfield, so like it was shit. As a result, armed with their older Springfield 1903s, the US would have had a much worse run of it, especially in the vital opening battles for Europe, such as the beaches of Normandy, where there existed no alternatives other than conducting a massive naval landing of forces under a beachhead occupied by heavy enemy elements, something that, for the time and to this very day, is largely considered a suicide mission with modern technology. It's never been attempted since. And mind you, this wasn't just boots. In either World War, Germany was not to be contested in a game of building. Trenches far superior to the Allied networks in the Great War, and in its sequel, concrete machine gun nests, towering walls, and entire valleys of barbed wire stood between the ocean and their men. Without that key element of suppressive fire, with something that forgoes the commonplace process of operating a bolt between shots, I really don't see how conflicts like that could be a win. The design of semi-automatic fire was such an improvement given the fact that not having to shift your weapon around after every shot you took meant you'd never have to reacquire the target like you did with bolt action, such a vast improvement that Patton would hail as the greatest battle implement ever devised. And I could agree, right up until they figured out nukes 2 years later.
We attacked 3 boats, they dropped the sun on us twice.
Another thing I think most people don't realize is that the Garand actually took a good 2 decades to iron out its shit. It originally started as a 30 caliber primer actuated blowback rifle in 1919. 5 years later, extensive trials against the Thompson model made the Ordnance Board's verdict as inconclusive, and per the request, the gun was actually redone and then the military standard 30-06 cartridge, which, if you think 5.56 has a history with the attachment with the United States Armed Forces, you haven't seen shit yet. I mean, they really liked their Springfield, and for good reason. Like, every forum user will regurgitate the same story that Germany complained about the trench gun being a war crime, but I think it's really understated how the standard issue rifle to every Tom, Dick, and Harry was a chronic cranium-removing machine which could dispatch all 8 cartridges in well under 10 seconds. Read, the Garand hard-carried the US in every infantry engagement they took part in against the SS, Wehrmacht, and Italians with their shitty, stupid tanks. They were seriously that short, like, guys, what the fuck? Anyway, at this point, it's probably obvious that I have an inordinate level of affection for the Garand. As a matter of fact, it's probably on the top of the list of guns I want to own, defiant to the stereotype of dangerous black tactical assault guns, with the only real drawback being it was made by a Canadian. So that's like a massive bummer, but okay. Now, I'm not going to give a massive history lesson on the M1911 because I've saved it for the pistol guides that I won't do ever, but you keep asking for. But let's just say that the 45 ACP in a self-loading format was no less groundbreaking, and there's a reason all the bubbas say the whole 2 World Wars thing. The only problem is it fucking sucked. Like, I'm not gonna cap, yeah, back when the standard primary capacity was 5 rounds and you were lucky to have a revolver, a 7-shot machine pistol made from witchcraft at the time was probably the thing to have, and 45 ACP has some stopping power, but a subsonic pistol caliber has no place in a modern war zone, and certainly not when there's only 7+1 of them. Every time I pull this thing out, the first guy is dead and the second guy is free to beat my ass, while in direct comparison, for the same price, an M9 and a 226 will both kill 3 to 4 dudes with no reloading necessary. And no, the tactical variant is not better. You get more kills if you whack the first guy and use one of the 2 remaining bullets you're going to miss with anyways to tickle the back of your head through your mouth. Don't use this gun, it should be cheaper. I have to because of the loadout, so here we go. Basically, the strategy I adopted here is stay back and plug away at people. You really can whack a guy with irons alone from absurd distances, and at some point I was just getting confirms and TDM, just shooting at a little pixel of a just a little muzzle flash on my monitor. And it's weird because generally you can one-tap someone at range, but as soon as you're up close where it's necessary, you can 100% expect to nail someone in the torso and do nothing. I complained about the accuracy and consistency of this weapon when it came out over a year ago, and I see that it hasn't been addressed. And when I allowed myself to use the smoke launcher, I see that the grenade apparition hasn't been fixed either. Guys, Cold Blood was like forever ago. You still haven't fixed half of it. Honestly, yeah, the 2.5 M1C scope is actually pretty preferable when it comes to authentic accessories, sometimes because the default irons are not in it. Without it, I actually think I hip fired a lot to make this video than most others just because of that. And as for the grenade, I'll never get grenades to work. Every time you pull out one, some magic rando gets spawned on my ass and depletes my life expectancy balance faster than you can save 5-second fuse time, and there's never any real opportunity to use them unless there's a teammate that's also covering you. I haven't gotten a kill with one yet, and I actually have to go try to get footage of 1 or 2 so this video will work once I'm done. Kill me! More or less, the game is ammo conservation. 24 rounds of rifle and 14 of pistol can go a very long way if you're willing to be smart, and can disappear if you play like a speed softer, especially because in more urgent scenarios, you will be triple tapping everything that moves. If you pull out your pistol, as a general rule, you are dead after like the first kill. I ran out of ammunition for my rifle more than once and eventually just gave up. I opted to utilize somebody else's United States service rifle with a few upgrades. The Garand is good. I was not even close to being the only person using my lobbies, and while sure, the SVD is better, the EBR is literally just a newer Garand, if you really think about it. And at the end of the day, those things don't go ping. That's just all. That's about all I can say about this build. I'd rather give a history lesson than break down the finer points of already covered material. Sue me. Until next time. Oh shit! Wait, I'm killing the series. Bye. Wait, 6 knives?